Greetings, chess friends, kings and queens. We are here back today with a very important topic. And you probably, some more experienced chess players already recognize this concept. But I must say, I feel like once you have done this in a real game, you can officially call yourself a chess player. This is a classic combination. If you haven't seen this, really pay attention. We're going to see this concept quite a bit today. First, I want to mention that the queen and the knight are the most powerful tandem, the most powerful team in chess. The reason for that is they have all the powers of all the pieces in chess. So queen, of course, can do almost everything, and then the knight has the unique abilities to jump. So queen and knight, super powerful attacking team. Here we go. This one, you need the queen pointing at their king with the knight in between. Very often, this pawn was captured or something similar, where the solution goes knight h6, double check. A little point to remember, when it is double check, the king always has to move. Okay? King always has to move on double check every single time, unless it's checkmate. So king h8, only move. And here, the stunning moment, queen g8. If you hadn't ever seen this, you may be shocked what is happening, but the king cannot take due to the knight guarding. And when the rook takes the only legal move, here the finale, knight f7. Absolutely classic. One of the most aesthetically pleasing things in chess, the smothered checkmate. Essentially, one team's pieces are hurting them, surrounding their own king, and the knight, due to this unique movement, can jump to make checkmate all by itself. Very interesting. So you don't see pieces, even the major pieces, you don't see them mating alone much. Back row checkmate is the example, but this beautiful concept. Let's see this in a few opening traps where this smothered mate can occur. This I've seen from an Alekhine game as well. I'm sure it's happened many times, but here's a Richard report. And knight d7, not a good move. Knight d6, immediately checkmate. Seems a little hidden. Your king is in danger with two pieces in between, but through the magic of chess, we can just jump. One's out of the way, one's pinned, and it's mate all of a sudden. 5 moves in. Wow. Here's another one, an opening, which I would imagine most of you are quite familiar with. Here, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. Very common starting position. By the way, my recommendation is knight f6. Let the record show. Bishop c5, another good move. But here, knight d4. Not a good move. You can see the question mark, but a bit harsh. This is kind of setting a trap, hoping for the best. But just to be clear, not the best chess move. Knight takes e5, falling for the trap. Queen g5. All of a sudden, black has turned the tables, threatening the knight, threatening the pawn here. White goes for knight f7. I made a fork anyway. Queen under attack. Rook under attack. But actually, it is black who will have the last laugh and is just plain winning. This rook is hanging. Rook f1 saves it. Queen e4. No big deal. I'm still going to pick up this rook in the corner. No, you are not. If queen moves in the way, knight takes queen. Easy enough. And if bishop blocks, even worse. Checkmate. Checkmate. Now, we can't say the knight is doing this alone. Of course, the queen is here helping with the pin, but I'm going to make a few allowances today just to show these cool checkmates. As you can imagine, it doesn't happen too much at a high level. Okay, let's just see that again so you can really remember. Knight d4, not the best move, but here we go. Queen g5, queen g2, queen e4, and knight f3. Nice trap to remember. Okay, I mentioned the smothered mate as the most aesthetically pleasing, beautiful checkmate. But of the beautiful checkmates, this one is probably the most beautiful finish. So a really peculiar finish, and again, just reinforcing the beauties of chess. So h6 here. Every player would like to have the white pieces. Don't forget about this bishop. Long distance power. The queen and rook lined up, and this knight ready at a moment's notice to give its life to break open the king for the greater good. So queen h5. Actually, I like the way that white plays this. These inching forward moves. Queen h5, 1 square. Queen g6, 1 square. Knight f3, a good move. I love bringing more pieces in, and then 1 square more. So you see white has just inched into enemy territory. Very scary here. Queen h8, checkmate on the spot. You can see where black's own pieces are just so cluttered here. Really uncomfortable. Bishop d6, that gives the king at least a moment to run. Knight h4, remember that knight was over here. Use more pieces if you want to be a good attacker. All of a sudden, this is a great piece. King e7, knight g6, king d7, and queen again inching in. The one square moves, I love them. And this one really induces a horrible mistake, rook e7. Of all the checkmates today, I must say this is my favorite, just purely surrounded by its own pieces, and knight f8, checkmate. Beautiful. That one is really something. Wow, a little bit self-induced, self-made there, but you gotta love it. Here, a nice one with the black pieces. A3 was the last move. Knight d4, a counter strike against the queen. Queen retreats. Add more pieces. Like we just said, you're going to see this again and again, and you'll notice this is how attacking players seemingly call up the reserves. They have a full army ready as they, at the key moments, will bring in a new piece with a tempo or with a check. Bishop c2, that's not going to help matters because knight e2 is smothered, checkmate. Really, black had a great successful attack because we had a number of pieces. The magic number being 3 pieces makes an attack, but when you have 4 or 5 or more, you're just usually overwhelming the other team. So a good lesson there. Let's go next one. Here's a couple from the legend, Paul Morphy, which gives you a sense of how old this concept, this exact knight and queen smothered mate tactic is. In fact, I came across some information, hard to tell how accurate these things are nowadays, but I read that this was even mentioned in a book by Lucena. Some of you may recognize that name, the Lucena position, famous rook endgame, but evidently in some old book, some 500 years ago, they had this exact combination knight and queen smothered mate. So really cool if that's the case. Here we're just only in the 1850s with Morphy uncovering queen and knight, knight d7. You can see it happening slightly different here with the rook in the corner. Some of you may recognize this as similar to the Bobby Fischer game of the century. Maybe a little more advanced players have seen that, but this was constantly a threat in that game. It didn't actually occur. But here we go. If you've been paying attention, you should be able to spot now the classic queen c8. And with the knight guarding, this has the exact same effect as it did before. The rook can only take. And talk about a castle being too safe, so to speak. A knight d7, smothered checkmate. Here, another one, and this game was played with knight odds. Morphy started the game without his b1 knight and went on to win this game anyway. Not something you see anymore, but they used to do this to kind of even the odds. The players were so strong to try to make at least a competitive game. It seems like the stronger players still always won, but they would play with knight odds, rook odds, pawn odds, just to see. But Morphy was still a master of this type of attacking game. And here we go, queen a3. Just a couple points. Sometimes this does occur in these variations. If you try to go the other way and avoid this, that queen e7 lands as checkmate. So there's no escape here. It is checkmate by force. Knight e7, the only legal move. King f8, knight g6, king g8, and queen f8. Okay, let's keep this exciting as I feel like we've seen enough of these now. Here's a different one. Knight takes d4, queen b1. The bishop doing the defending here. That way the king can still not take. Rook takes knight c2. Okay, little different here, so stick with me, and we're going to have some honorable mentions a little later on that you're not going to want to miss. Rook g6, a dream attacking position. Again, one team, black in this case, just overwhelming with multiple pieces. You need a group to win the game. He plays king f1, and here, queen b5, actually the best move. Kind of crossing to the other side of the board, feels like we're almost abandoning the attack, but then you see the queen is staring right at the king, setting up all these checkmate ideas. So queen e2, thinking that they may be stopping the problem. Unfortunately, knight d2 is just made on the spot. Does that count as a smothered mate? I don't know. White's pieces aren't exactly the ones that are closing him in, but I felt like this was a cool honorable mention here. The queen is pinned, so you cannot take. The rook kind of creates a wall here guarding the other squares, and the knight delivers the mate. Cool checkmate there. Here we go. Last official one, and then we're going to show a couple that are honorable mentions. Rook takes e3. Again, a nice sacrifice, the best move, and the attack rages on with all four of these pieces participating. King h1. This one, again, a little different as it's the bishop going to guard this square. But what would you play here if you were going for this checkmate pattern we've been showing? Knight e4. Knight e4. It really has to be to access these key attacking squares. What's cool about this one is he's giving a rook. This is a rook sacrifice. White is up a whole rook here, but no matter. Because the bishop guards h2, the only move legal here is king g1. Knight takes h3. Again, that's a double check, which occurs with the knight a lot. And when it's double check, the king always has to move. King h1, queen g1, and two ways to capture. Both of them lead to checkmate. Knight takes, knight f2 mate, and the same if rook takes, knight f2 is checkmate. Let's see a couple different ones here. This obviously early in the game here, and knight c3, g6, bishop c4, good attacking moves. Bishop g7, d4, a5, not a good move here at all. And we're going to see white actually play a good move. You could actually do this with bishop f7, but who's counting? Knight g5, knight h6. Don't worry, I have that covered. Do you really? Bishop takes f7. Bishop takes f7 is a stunning move. Knight f7, knight e6, black resigns. 8 moves. Does that count as smothered mate? I guess not. But we are checkmating their queen, which I just love this idea, and just as good as winning. Usually this is only going to happen early in the game because your queen can move so much, so quickly. Once the pieces are traded, there's more open space. The queen is not going to get trapped like that, most likely. Here we go. Last one for today. Another similar one. Bishop takes f7 and knight e6. Not missing the opportunity right away there. I absolutely love this smothered mate concept. Again, making the most of what the knight can do. You really have to be alert. I'll mention that most of these, there's a few opening traps that have this. Those are worth memorizing, especially if you play those openings. But that queen and knight combination, the original one here that we saw, just kind of bare bones, nothing else going on, queen g8, you're going to need to know this combination to be a great chess player. Absolute requirement. And as you master it or do it in a game, you'll start to see it popping up more and more. At the high levels, it usually will just show up in the notes. It's not going to show up on the board. Oops, didn't see that. It just won't happen hardly ever at the IMGM level. So you really need to, if you are a player, let's say under 1600, this could be a very common occurrence and something that can really help you to end the game in your favor quickly, instead of sometimes those attacks linger and then they're not successful 100%, etc. So this might just be the way to end it. Hope you enjoyed this really fun lesson. Again, I love the aesthetics and the beauty of chess here that are on display in this one. I'll keep making more fun educational chess content, and if you do have any suggestions or anything you want to see, openings talked about, tactics, players, anything like that, just shoot a message over or leave a comment. Happy to respond, and I appreciate the view. Thank you all.